Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel where we bring you the most inspiring and powerful stories of modern history. Stories that open your mind, touch your heart, and help you learn English naturally. Today, I am going to tell you about a boy who had a name that nobody could pronounce. A boy with skin the color of coffee and hair as dark as night, growing up in a world that was not always sure what to make of him. A boy who was raised by a single mother and his grandparents, who sometimes felt like an outsider in his own country. But that boy had a voice. He had a dream. And he had a belief, deep in his bones, that people could be brought together, that hope was stronger than hate, and that change was possible if you were willing to fight for it. That boy became a community organizer on the streets of Chicago, a constitutional law professor, a United States senator, and then, in a moment that shook the world, he became the first Black president of the United States of America. His name is Barack Obama. How did a skinny kid with a funny name rise from humble beginnings to the most powerful office on earth? How did his words, his calm determination, and his call for hope and unity inspire millions? This is a story about identity, about politics, about the power of community, and about the audacity of hope. And as always, this story is a wonderful way to improve your English. You will learn vocabulary about law, government, and motivation. Words like community organizer, senator, campaign, inauguration, legislation, constitution, hope, and legacy. You will hear the rhythm of one of the great speakers of our time. So, let us travel back to the beautiful islands of Hawaii. Let us begin from the very start. Barack Hussein Obama II was born on August 4, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Hawaii is a paradise of golden beaches, blue seas, and green mountains. But Barack's family story was far from paradise. It was a story of cross-cultural currents, of love across boundaries, and of early separation. His father, Barack Obama Sr., was a brilliant economist from a small village in Kenya, in East Africa. He had come to the United States on a scholarship to study at the University of Hawaii. His mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, was a young, idealistic white woman from Kansas, a state in the heartland of America. They met in a Russian language class. They fell in love and married at a time when interracial marriage was still illegal in many parts of the country. They were pioneers of the heart. But the marriage was not to last. When Barack was just 2 years old, his father left to study at Harvard and then returned to Kenya. He would see his son only once more, when Barack was 10. The absence of his father left a deep, hollow space in Barack's young soul. He would spend much of his life trying to understand the man who gave him his name and his dreams. His mother, Anne, was a remarkable woman, fiercely intelligent and deeply curious about the world. She remarried a man from Indonesia, a country of thousands of islands in Southeast Asia. And so, at the age of 6, little Barack moved to Jakarta, the bustling, chaotic capital of Indonesia. It was a world of vivid colors, strange languages, and new smells. He flew kites with the neighborhood kids, chased chickens, and learned to eat rice with his hands. He saw extreme poverty for the first time, beggars on the streets, children without shoes. It was a world away from Hawaii. His mother woke him up every morning before dawn to give him English lessons. She was determined that her son would have a great education. She believed in him with a fierce, unwavering intensity. But she also saw the challenges. In Indonesia, he was often teased for being different. He was the foreign kid. And back in America, he would face a different kind of difference. When Barack was 10, his mother made a painful decision. She sent him back to Hawaii to live with his grandparents, Madeline and Stanley Dunham, so he could attend the prestigious Punahou School, a private school for the elite. She knew that his future depended on the opportunities he would find in America. Living with his grandparents was a grounding experience. His grandfather, Gramps, was a furniture salesman, a friendly, restless man who loved jazz and told tall tales. His grandmother, Toot, was a pragmatic, hard-working woman, a bank vice president, steady as a rock. They were white, and they loved their black grandson with a love that was absolute. But they could not fully protect him from the world outside. Punahou was an excellent school, but Barack was one of very few black students there. He struggled with his racial identity. He was too white for some black kids, and too black for the white establishment. He felt invisible, caught between two worlds. Who was he? Was he Barry, the laid-back Hawaiian kid? Was he Barack, the African name that felt so heavy? In his teenage years, he wrestled with anger and confusion. He sometimes skipped class. He dabbled in things he shouldn't have. He later wrote that he made bad choices and tried to numb the pain of his absent father and his complex identity. But basketball was his refuge. On the court, he found a community. He was a smooth, smart player, a left-hander with a good shot. His friends called him Barry a Bomber for his jump shot. The discipline of the game kept him anchored. And slowly, the intellectual fire that his mother had lit began to burn brighter. He started reading deeply, devouring books by James Baldwin, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. He began to understand that his personal struggles were connected to a larger history, a struggle for civil rights and human dignity. After graduating from high school, Barack moved to Los Angeles to attend Occidental College. He was a serious student, but he was still searching. Then he transferred to Columbia University in New York City. It was a gritty, intense city, and he lived a simple, almost monastic life. He read classic philosophy and political theory. He broke up with a girlfriend. He was trying to strip his life down to the essentials, to figure out who he was and what he believed. He graduated with a degree in political science in 1983. But the question remained, how could he make a difference? The answer would come not from a book, but from the streets. After a brief stint in business, Barack Obama moved to Chicago, a city of brutal winters, deep racial divides, and a rich history of community activism. He became a community organizer on the south side of the city, working with churches and neighborhood groups in areas devastated by the closure of steel mills. His salary was tiny. He drove a beat-up old car with a hole in the floor. His job was to listen. He went door to door, sitting in kitchens and church basements, listening to the stories of people who had been ignored by the powerful. He helped them organize to fight for better housing, for job training, for safer streets. The work was slow, painful, and often seemed to achieve very little. But it taught him a fundamental lesson. Real change does not come from the top down, it comes from the ground up. It comes when ordinary people find their voice and stand together. He later said, "This was the best education I ever had, better than anything I got at Harvard Law School." But he also learned that to make a lasting impact, he needed more than just passion. He needed a seat at the table. He needed to understand the levers of power, the law. So, in 1988, he applied to Harvard Law School, the most prestigious law school in the nation. He was accepted. At Harvard, he stood out. He was older, more mature, more grounded than most of his classmates. He had a calm, deliberate presence in the classroom. And in a truly historic moment, He was elected as the first Black president of the prestigious Harvard Law Review. It was a national news story. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know who this young man was. Book publishers called. He had a story to tell. But the most important thing that happened to him at Harvard was not the fame. It was that he met a young woman named Michelle Robinson. She was assigned to be his mentor at a law firm where he was a summer intern. She was brilliant, sharp, and stunningly confident. He was immediately smitten. He asked her out repeatedly. She said no again and again because she thought a romance between coworkers was unprofessional. But he persisted. He took her to a Spike Lee movie. He showed her his community organizing photos. Slowly, her walls came down. They fell deeply in love. Michelle was the anchor, the truth-teller, the partner he had been waiting for. After Harvard, Barack returned to Chicago. He turned down the big-money jobs. He taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago Law School, a job he loved. He joined a small civil rights law firm. He and Michelle got married. They had 2 beautiful daughters, Malia and Sasha. He was building a life. But the call of public service was too strong to ignore. In 1996, he ran for the Illinois State Senate. He won. He was a state senator now, navigating the messy, grinding world of local politics. He learned to build coalitions, to compromise without sacrificing his principles. He helped pass legislation to provide health care to children and to reform the death penalty system. He was known as a thoughtful, progressive, but pragmatic legislator. It wasn't glamorous. Sometimes he was stuck in boring committee meetings in Springfield, the state capital, long into the night. He was a husband and a father, and he missed his family when he was away. But he was fighting the good fight. Then, in 2000, he took a huge risk. He ran for a seat in the United States Congress against a popular incumbent. He lost badly. It was a humiliating defeat. His political career seemed over before it had truly begun. He was in debt, discouraged, and questioning his path. But Barack Obama, as he had done his whole life, looked inward and used failure as fuel. He refocused on his family, on his teaching, and on his state work. And he prepared for a bigger stage. The moment came in 2004. The Democratic Party was holding its national convention in Boston. They needed a keynote speaker. They chose a little-known state senator with a funny name from Illinois. On July 27, 2004, Barack Obama walked onto a massive stage in front of millions of television viewers. He spoke not as a black man or a white man, but as an American. He spoke of his own improbable story, the son of a Kenyan goat herder and a Kansas girl. He spoke of the audacity of hope. He said, "There's not a liberal America and a conservative America. There's the United States of America. There's not a black America and a white America and a Latino America and an Asian America. There's the United States of America." The crowd was on its feet. Phones buzzed across the nation. A star was born. That fall, he was elected to the United States Senate in a landslide. He arrived in Washington, D.C. as a celebrity. But he kept his head down. He worked across the aisle, learning the ropes. Yet the whisper was already growing into a roar. He should run for president. It seemed impossible. He had been a senator for only 2 years. He was a black man in a nation still deeply scarred by racism. But a movement was building, a hunger for a different kind of politics. In February 2007, on a freezing cold day in Springfield, Illinois, the same city where Abraham Lincoln had launched his career, Barack Obama stood before a crowd of thousands and announced his candidacy for President of the United States. His campaign was a long shot. He was running against Hillary Clinton, the powerful former First Lady, the establishment favorite. The Democratic primary battle was epic and brutal. It went on for months, state by state, debate by debate. Obama's message of hope and change was electrifying. His "Yes, we can" speech, set to music, became a viral sensation before viral sensations existed. He connected with young people, with independents, and with those who had never voted before. He used the internet to raise huge amounts of money from small donors, revolutionizing campaign finance. He defeated his opponent and secured the nomination. The general election campaign against Senator John McCain was just as fierce. The nation was in turmoil. 2 wars were raging in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the economy was beginning to collapse. The financial system was on the edge of a cliff. Barack Obama remained calm. His steadiness under pressure was his secret weapon. His opponents tried to use his name, his heritage, and his former pastor against him. He gave a historic speech on race in America, speaking honestly about the pain of both Black and white communities, refusing to paper over the divisions. On election night, November 4, 2008, the world watched. When the polls closed and the results came in, Barack Obama had won in a historic landslide. He was the first Black person ever elected president of the United States. In Grant Park, Chicago, where protesters had been beaten by police 40 years earlier, a sea of people, over 240,000 strong, wept with joy. Old men who had lived through Jim Crow, children on their parents' shoulders, faces of every single color. Barack Obama walked onto the stage with Michelle and his daughters. He spoke of the journey, of the 106-year-old woman whose vote had been the final link in a chain of progress. He said, "It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America." When he took office in January 2009, the problems were immense. The economy was in freefall, losing 800,000 jobs a month. He pushed through a massive economic stimulus package to rescue the country. He signed the Affordable Care Act into law, extending health insurance to millions of Americans who had been without it, a goal presidents had tried and failed to achieve for a century. He rescued the American auto industry. He ordered the raid that finally killed Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of the September 11th attacks. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. His presidency was not without controversy. He was criticized by the right and sometimes by the left. His attempts to unite a deeply divided country were often frustrated. Yet, through it all, he remained the calm center of the storm. He never embarrassed his family. He was a devoted father, always making time for dinner with his girls, coaching their basketball teams. He was a role model of dignity, intellect, and grace. In 2012, he was re-elected. After leaving office in 2017, he and Michelle started the Obama Foundation, dedicated to inspiring and empowering the next generation of leaders. He wrote his memoirs, A Promised Land, a deep, honest reflection on power and history. He has continued to speak out on behalf of democracy and human decency. Now, what can we learn from the incredible life of Barack Obama? First, your identity is your strength. For a long time, Barack Obama felt like an outsider, too Black, too white, not belonging anywhere. But his multicultural, multiracial background gave him a unique perspective, an empathy that allowed him to understand many different kinds of people. Do not let the world put you in a box. Your complex identity is a gift, a bridge that others cannot build. Second, the audacity of hope. The title of his famous book and speech is not about naive optimism. It is about the courage to hope in the face of cynicism, to work for change even when the odds are long. Learning English is an act of audacity. You are hoping for a better future and you are working to build it. Hold on to that hope. Third, start from where you are. Obama's career began not in the halls of power, but on the streets of Chicago, listening to poor people. He did not wait for permission to lead. He started organizing. Do not wait until your English is perfect to start speaking. Start now, from where you are, with the words you have. Fourth, yes, we can is more than a slogan. It is a belief in the power of collective action. Obama's success was not just his own. It was the work of thousands of volunteers who believed that they could make a difference. You are not alone in your language journey. Find a community. When we work together, we can achieve the impossible. Fifth, remain calm under pressure. Obama's greatest political attribute was his steadiness. In a crisis, he did not panic. He gathered the facts, listened to his advisors, and made a decision. In your language studies, when you feel overwhelmed, stay calm. Take a deep breath. One word at a time. And finally, we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is a line from one of his speeches. It means that the solution to our problems does not lie in waiting for a single savior or a perfect leader. The power to fix things is in our own hands. You are the one you have been waiting for. You have the power to transform your own life. Take it. Barack Obama once said, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time." We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. You right now are seeking change. You are seeking a new language, a new skill, a new connection to the world. You are the agent of that change. So, do not wait. The time is now. Your story is being written, and it is a story of hope. Thank you for listening to this story. If it inspired you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with a dreamer who needs a reminder that change is possible. And let me know in the comments, what does hope mean to you? I read every comment. Until next time, keep organizing your life, keep speaking your truth, and always remember, yes, you can. Bye for now.